and welcome once again to this episode of season 6 of the Dr. Tech Show, where myself, Pauline Roche, and Sweyn Hunter, and often guests, talk about digital topics, including the world of online communications and digital inclusion, in a show which was the brainchild of digital storyteller, the late John Popham, who we're going to commemorate today later in the show. So, Sweyn, starting off, how has the weather been this week where you are?
It's been very cold until today, and today it's a beautiful May Orkney day. It's lovely. How
Good.
about you?
Yeah, here in Ireland, it is lots of white cloud out the window, and trees are blowing, so it's been breezy. We've had terrible rain. Well, terrible, I mean, rain.
Irish rain.
But it's been some sunshine as well, so it's been a mixture. Yeah, usual Irish
Good,
weather.
good.
So, you've got some dates for us today.
Yes, the first one is begins today, in fact, and runs all week. It is called Learning at Work Week, and this is, as it suggests, a week in which everyone is invited to learn at work. It's a unique annual event to build learning cultures at work, and it aims to put a spotlight on the importance and benefits of continual learning and development. The week is led nationally, that's in the UK, by Campaign for Learning, and employers are invited to mark Learning at Work Week in their organisations. The Campaign for Learning provide learning and development colleagues and organisers the planning resources, activities and ideas to run creative, innovative and inclusive campaigns and events. The week is for everyone and is designed so all organisations can take part. Workplaces of all sizes, sectors and types run events, including multinationals, SMEs, charities, public sector organisations and government departments. Events are led and organised by HR and learning and development colleagues, by learning champions and by marketing and communications colleagues. And they're often delivered collaboratively with colleagues across the organisation. So that's Learning to Work Week. And in fact, my new employers, I'm just simply going to say I'm a very junior, very part-time civil servant since January. My employing department has got a full programme of events. In fact, just too late, I offered to do a session on digital inclusion, but I was too late to actually get it included in this year. But they were very good about it, and they said they would try and fit it into something else relevant. So that's Learning at Work Week. The second event that I have is called World Bee Day, and this is run by the Food and Agriculture Organization of the United Nations. And by observing this day each year, we can raise awareness on the essential role bees and other pollinators play in keeping people and the planet healthy, and on the many challenges they face today. The day has been celebrated since 2018, thanks to the efforts of the government of Slovenia, with the support of Apimondia, that led the UN General Assembly to declare 20th of May as World Bee Day, so that's Wednesday this week. The date for this observance was chosen as it was the day Anton Jansa, a pioneer of modern apiculture, was born. Jansa came from a family of beekeepers in Slovenia, where beekeeping is an important agricultural activity with a long-standing tradition. And today bees, pollinators and many other insects are declining in abundance. So the day provides an opportunity for all of us, whether we work for governments, organisations or civil society or our concerned citizens, to promote actions that will protect and enhance pollinators and their habitats, improve their abundance and diversity, and support the sustainable development of beekeeping.
Excellent.
And finally,
sorry, before you go to the final one, are you a beekeeper of any sort yourself, or have you had any
I'm not.
contact with beekeeping?
There are quite a few beekeepers in Orkney. Distinctive kind of heather-style honey that comes from this kind of area. But no, it's not something that I think I would be patient enough for.
Yeah. Friends do it here, but I'm not. I don't think I can ever see myself as a beekeeper.
I don't think it would be fair on the bees to let me be responsible for them, to be perfectly honest.
Okay.
So,
great.
lastly, in the dates, I've invented one. and it's the International John Popham Dr. Tech Day.
Woohoo!
And it's not run by any organisation. This is the first time it's ever been mentioned or invented. And well, apart from there's no official status whatsoever, other than being recognised by the Grand Order of JFDI, which is a joke about just getting things done,
Yeah.
which was very much John's philosophy in life. So on the 18th of May 2020, John Popham, our dear departed friend and colleague, he had the idea, or it was the idea, his idea came to fruition for a show to guide people through how to get connected to the internet, and he called it the Dr. Tech Show because he'd been invited onto local radio a few times, and he'd invented this persona for himself as Dr. Tech. His plan was that we would all become rich and be sponsored by Microsoft or some very expensively generous multinational, or indeed not be rich and just carry on doing it. Well, guess which happened. And as I say, episode 1 was broadcast on the 18th of May, which was exactly 2020, exactly 6 years ago. And although we didn't know it at the time, John was very ill by that stage, and in fact he died in only a few months later. But not before he did everything possible to establish Dr. Tech as a thing. So I thought what we would do is simply watch the first few chaotic seconds of episode 1 of the Dr. Tech Show. So here goes.
Right, okay, so it is 12 o'clock. And so, welcome to the first episode of the Dr. Tech Show. And being highly professional, I'm going to now try to play the theme music. And I can't. I will try. Yeah, so this is not at all professional. I am...
Sorry to interrupt, but I do know how he feels. Every week I feel this like this.
Anyway, so this is going well so far.
What's he doing?
Oh, there you are.
Oh, fuzzy beard.
I'll tell you
The
what,
old room.
Might not bother.
We've done that.
Let's go on. I might bring it in later on if I can find it, because I tried to play it from Google Drive and it didn't work. Mm-hmm. So anyway, welcome to the first edition of the Dr. Tech Show. I'm John Popham, and is this working? Yes, it's working. Yeah. I'm John Popham, and this is just a bit of an experiment, really. We've started up to try to get to reach out to people who are not online and to see if we can help them to get online during this coronavirus crisis. I've been doing this kind of work for years and years now, working with particularly older people to try to turn them on to new technologies. And of course, one of the big problems that we have is how do we reach out to people who are not digital if we've only got digital means at our to deploy. But we're going to experiment with this. We're probably not going to get very much interaction with this today, but hopefully at some point we're going to get people calling in so that we can help them with their tech issues. So if you want to get in, there's a number on the screen that you can call to get in, but actually the preferable way to get in would be if you could drop us a message either on my social media channels or on Sweyn or Pauline's social media channels or in the comment box on YouTube. If you want to get in, send us a message and we'll get the Zoom link so you can join in this meeting. And I'm very pleased today to be joined by Pauline Roche and Sweyn Hunter, who are helping us out with this. So, guys, do you want to introduce yourself? Start with you, Pauline.
Hi, I'm Pauline Roche. I'm the editor of a newsletter called Digital WM News. I run a tiny social enterprise in the West Midlands, and we help small voluntary community organisations to get their heads around digital and data. And we do some operational and strategic development matters as well. So everything that can be done really to help small charities work better, make better decisions using data, hopefully.
And Sweyn?
Hi, I'm Sweyn Hunter from Orkney. That's the islands off the far north coast of Scotland. I work for the local authority here usually, although this is a day off. And I've worked in all sorts of IT and tech over the years. And at the moment, I'm looking at how our organisation can become more digital in its approach and its services to our citizens and visitors.
Brilliant. Thank you very much. I'm going to have a second attempt now to play the theme tune because it didn't work last time.
Woo!
Did that work?
Yes.
It did. And with that, Dr. Tech was launched upon the world.
Excellent. Oh, so good to see it. We've changed a bit since then. And you not so much, but me more. Yeah, great.
So
Oh,
there we are.
heady days.
Indeed.
Yeah,
Indeed.
I didn't, we didn't think then, did we, that we'd be
I
still
didn't really know
doing
what
it?
would happen
No,
about it.
no,
I don't think we ever got a single caller by phone.
no, I don't think we
We did
did.
get a few messages and we got a
Mm,
few guests. In fact, I can see in the chat for that episode there was a couple of people, probably primed by John,
yeah,
to interact in the channel chat. But
yeah,
no, anyway, here we
yeah.
still are.
And
So
yeah, we hope that John and his family, kind of are pleased with the legacy that we've continued on. We continued on, I think, because we like doing it, and because of our love for John and the work that he was doing, and how important we thought it was. Now, over the years, I think it's kind of moved on. Obviously, COVID lockdowns ended eventually. Um, and more people did come online, but we're still very well aware that it's not um, easy for everybody, and we keep bringing bringing this news to the attention of whoever wants to listen to it and talk about it, as well as inviting guests to come on to talk about the kind of work they do in the digital space, because there's so much you could do. And we hope that it brings inspiration to people and gets them to ask questions, and generally tries to move things along, and keep the flag flying for online communications. So yeah.
I'm just reading through the notes of the first episode, and in fact, we were joined that day by three guests. I think
Ah.
Sean Brady,
Mm.
who talked about his experience of using video conferencing with his family and his parish council, and also by my friend and fellow Orcadian Dennis Gowland. I'd forgotten about this.
Mm.
Who described his journey from a relatively tech-averse citizen to a regular participant in Zoom meetings as COVID took hold, and also by our friend Simon Finch.
Oh yeah.
He was on our first episode as well, and was talking about his experience of using Facebook Portal. Remember that?
Oh yes.
To communicate with his father
Yeah.
who was in a care home, and I think his mother had died fairly soon before that.
Mm.
And I think his father passed away as well, not very long after this episode. So it was great to have Simon on, who we've had on a few times since, to talk about that.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was that.
And we both invested in Facebook Portal, didn't
We
we?
did, we did. I even used it a couple of times.
Yeah, I did too. It's around somewhere, but I see on some Facebook groups that I'm in, people complaining that
No, it's
they
pretty
stopped
much,
Facebook stopped
yeah,
supporting it, so
no,
it's kind of a bit of a break
yeah.
now. Maybe a fancy photograph album type thing.
Yes, exactly.
Sadly, because I think it still has
It's a good
potential.
idea.
Yeah,
It was a good
yeah.
idea.
Mm.
Don't think Facebook. It wasn't a proper fit with Facebook's other business. That was the thing.
No,
They're not
no,
hardware suppliers at all. So
no. It's a pity.
it's a bit of a shame.
Okay,
So on with
so
events.
yes, indeed, and this was kind of we built up over the years, telling people about events and stuff that we think would be of interest to John and people like John and people he would have supported. So with that said, let's launch into this week's events that we've picked up, and the first one is tomorrow, and it's called LGBTQIA and Collective Voice, and it's an event in Barnsley, which is great because it was a local place to John. Um, and this is Barnsley CBS and Barnsley Council inviting LGBTQIA and community members aged 16 plus, sorry, LGBTQIA plus community members aged 16 plus to the fourth collective LGBTQIA plus and collective meeting on 19th May 2026, which is tomorrow. The blurb says, we're continuing to build on the positive conversation so far and shape our shared vision together. Whether you've attended before or this is your first time, you'll be very welcome. Every voice matters. And this session was going to focus on an update on agreed safe spaces for our communities to come together. And this was the bit I thought would be of interest to the people listening to the program. Developing an online platform to improve communication and collaboration. So, we often think that all the platforms that could be developed have been developed and people are out there using them, but sometimes people are starting over. And as in this case, as we hope every case would be, making sure that the voice of the people who are going to be using it is part of the planning and design process. So well done to Barnsley, and we hope that people in the local area find that of use and interest, and
Barnsley, of course, is
we'd love to
South
hear more
Yorkshire.
about it. Yeah,
Huddersfield was West Yorkshire, but that's a detail.
I think John had an
He did have
expansive
a. He did have
mind.
a. He covered more than just West Yorkshire. Yes,
He
I'm
did,
sure.
he did, yeah.
Okay.
Okay, and another event tomorrow, and this is harking back to where I used to work previously, is a grant funding Q&A session by Digital NNS, Neighbourhood Network Schemes in Birmingham. This is an online session, but obviously this grant funding is just for people who live and work in the Digital NNS area, which is Birmingham. And this is a grant that's available to fund digital inclusion sessions. The blurb says, got questions about the digital NNS grant? This is your chance to get answers in a relaxed, informal chat. Whether you're new or have applied before, we'll cover everything you need to know. Join us on this easygoing session to boost your grant knowledge and connect with others interested in digital inclusion. So it's an online session, and when you register, you'll receive a link to join. And I always like advertising when there's a bits of money available for digital stuff because it's not common. And this is even better. It's coming from a voluntary organisation. I mean, the money's coming from the council, obviously, and other places, but local a charity gets to decide or help to make decisions about who gets the funding for it. So, again, if somebody from Digital NNS would like to come on the show and talk about how they're getting on, we'd love to hear from you, and we wish you well in the meantime. The next event is from our friends at Tech for Good Southwest. This is part of what was the UK and Ireland Tech for Good network. Still exists in parts around the country, but Tech for Good Southwest has certainly kind of grown and established itself as a strong voice for technology for social good. And they're running an on conference on Friday, 22nd of May. And the blurb tells people this is not your usual event. No keynotes, no panels, no agenda decided in advance. It's a half day where the people in the room decide what tech for good topics get talked about. Whether you're a charity navigating digital change, a funder trying to understand what's really happening on the ground, a tech specialist looking to apply your skills somewhere that matters, a social entrepreneur trying to figure out your next move, or a business seeking purposeful impact, this is a space built for you. And it explains the kind of the nature of a non-conference. On the day, anyone can pitch a topic or question they want to explore. The group chooses what to discuss, splits into conversations, and gets into it. Past sessions have covered AI ethics, digital inclusion, sustainability, funding models, and things nobody had a name for yet. You won't know what the agenda is until you're in the room, and that's the point. So, we're both big fans of on-conferences and helped to organise several. Um, and yeah, so if you haven't been to an conference before, do go because you'll get a new perspective on things you didn't have before. And if you're an old hand, I'm sure you'd be very welcome as well.
And I didn't mention it because I hadn't made the connection, but we also spoke about unconferences in episode 1 of Dr. Tech Show. So there we are. We're still talking about them.
Yeah,
And quite
well,
right too. There's always a new audience for
yes,
these things, and it's always good
absolutely.
to get a mix of people who've both experienced the format, but it's also good to see people's first reactions when they're new to the format. They always have something. They always bring something else out of the format
Yeah.
that only they could have done because they were
Yeah,
there on the day.
absolutely. One of the things I enjoyed most about organising the first unconference for digital when I was working for Digital NS was the reactions of people, and we filmed the event, which was I think not usual. Conferences don't often get filmed, so we made a short film about it, which we have shown on this program actually previously.
Yep.
And it was great to see people's comments, fresh on the day. Most of whom had never been to a run conference before, so it was great. And yeah, usually very kind of life changing. People never think, always then go on to say things like, "Oh, I wish all conferences were like this." So yeah.
One day they will be.
So sticking with Birmingham, I picked up a couple of sessions that are happening on the 26th, 27th, and 28th of May, and this was of interest to me because they're combining ESOL and digital skills, and it's an ESOL and digital skills induction and sign up session with East Birmingham Community Forum. And the blurb just says, "Come join us to kickstart your ESOL and digital skills journey."
We all know what
Oh,
ESOL means, don't we?
English for speakers of other languages. I was
That's
just
what it
about to
is.
say,
Yes,
yes.
yes.
Journey with a fun and easy sign-up session,
Oh,
and
that's a good idea.
you're invited to join to register for two fully funded, recognised UK qualifications. And I hadn't seen this combination before, which is
No,
why I picked it up. I do know about the East Birmingham Community Forum. I had some dealings with them when I was based in Birmingham, and I'm sure they're a great organisation to be running something like this because they've got history around ESOL and kind of other learning sessions for the community. And I think this is an interesting combination for people who may not have English, who may have other languages, but English may not have been their first language, and certainly they will have other languages. So I'd love to hear from them about how this goes and
it
what the
makes a
take up
lot of
is.
sense, doesn't it, to have those
Mm,
two things
yeah,
packaged together?
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, it's
So
interesting.
well done to East Birmingham
Hope that
Community
that
Forum
goes
for that.
well.
Yeah. And we have a few more events, I think. Yeah, the 27th of May. Uh, I can't remember where this one was. It's called Digital Futures: Rethinking Inequalities in an AI-Driven World. Does it say where that one
It's
was?
in London.
Okay, so the blurb says digital technologies are increasingly shaping how we live, work, and access services, but their impacts are uneven. While they can create opportunities, they also have the potential to reinforce or deepen existing inequalities in ways that are often subtle and interconnected. This panel brings together speakers from different backgrounds to explore how inequalities operate in the digital sphere and how power distribution in the field of AI and digital technology is reshaping inequalities today. What is the contribution of academia in this constantly evolving landscape, and how can we strengthen the synergies between academia and policy to promote social justice and democracy in the digital space? So you're welcome to join the panel for a timely and thought-provoking conversation, part of UCL's grand challenge of inequalities. The event is free to attend for all students, staff, and members of the public. And the speakers are Rowan Wilkinson, an expert in tech policy, geopolitics, and digital strategy, and a research associate in the Digital Society program at Chatham House. Dr. Anna Slalapatanis, I should have practiced that, a
Indeed.
lecturer in sociology and social policy at University College London. Sarah Al-Sharif, a human rights defender and researcher in digital rights and a migrant digital justice program manager at Open Rights Group. Nai Lee Kalema, a PhD candidate in innovation and public policy at the UCL Institute for Innovation and Public Purpose. The moderator is Dr. Adele Galipo, lecturer in sociology at UCL Social Research Institute and recipient of UCL's Grand Challenge of Inequalities Catalyst Grant, with an introduction by Katerina Tassi, an MS sociology student at UCL Social Research Institute. So that sounds like a very
Sounds great.
prominent lineup of people, yeah, who are going to be talking about uh, rethinking inequalities in an AI-driven world. Because I think, there's often a kind of an unchallenged introduction of AI as if it's just going to be good for everything and everyone, and of course it's not.
Yeah.
It is going to affect some people less well in a negative way.
Mm.
So it's good to see a university looking at that. The next event, we've got two more, I think. Yeah,
We're doing well for
is
events.
we are with a busy week
Yeah.
month for events. This is in Airdrie in Lanarkshire, and it's the Citizens Advice Bureau. Um, and the session is called "Connecting Our Community Digital Workshop," and this invites people to learn about the benefits of using online services. A friendly session to help you practice completing digital tasks with confidence. And it goes on to say our Tech Savvy Seniors project is running a workshop to increase the confidence of our older community in digital tasks that are becoming increasingly difficult. This hands on session will introduce the benefits of using online services. The course will look at phone safety and security, explore Wi Fi and connectivity, You will learn how to pair devices and understand the benefits of Google Wallet to pay for items. Get to know about the world of apps and how you can save money by using comparison websites. It does go on to say the workshop is informal with plenty of opportunity to discuss challenges and this was a key piece for me, user-friendly workbooks will be available on the day.
Yes.
Remember our friend Paul Clayton always talking about bringing a notebook to a digital skills session because there'll always be things you need to write down. So
Yes.
good to see them being provided for people on the
That looks
day.
like a great session, actually. I mean, it's very
It
traditional
does.
digital skills,
Mm,
but the
mm,
thing I like about it is how it's described in terms of, um, you know, practical, useful things that
mm.
everybody will have heard of some of, even if they can't yet do them,
Yeah,
and will understand why they might want to do them. It's
yeah.
great.
And it's acknowledging that their digital tasks are becoming increasingly difficult.
Mm,
So, user
mm,
research people and design people need to be listening to us and people like this
yeah.
who kind of have things to say about how to make things more accessible to people um, when they're designing online. Okay, and so we come on to the last session, which I took the blurb from a LinkedIn post because
Ah, good.
the actual content of the um, session that's referenced seemed very technical, but the link on LinkedIn post by Kate Parsley seemed more readable. So that's what I've quoted from. So this is a session called "Who Does AI Work For? Inclusion, Equity, and Local Government" by Kate Parsley, and this is a webinar coming up in May, which I can't remember the date of now. Did I put a date at the top? Yeah, Thursday. Sorry, Thursday, 28th of May. Not reading my own writing now. And it says, following a request at the LGAI January Summit, our May webinar is looking at how we can ensure AI and emerging tech is being inclusive rather than driving inequalities. And LGAI UK is the community for local government professionals navigating AI and emerging tech across the UK, providing the expertise, peer insight, and practical guidance they need. And I can think of a few people actually I know in the public sector who would benefit from being part of
Yes.
that group, so I must let them know about this. So the blurb in the LinkedIn post says local government wants to ensure the most vulnerable residents are not left behind.
This
If
is the
this,
point. This is the point. It's perfect. You just this is the point.
yeah,
Sorry, carry on.
great to hear your enthusiasm, Swain. If this is a key concern for you, join us at Who Does AI Work For? Inclusion, Equity in Local Government. Our two panel members are absolutely fantastic. And again, this is a Swain related thing
Oh,
now. Amy Lowe, CEO of AbilityNet, the charity making the digital world accessible to all, is one of the speakers, and she's also a government advisor on digital inclusion. And Professor Odell Bozkurt, a sociologist of work and AI researcher at the University of Sussex, and a former elected councillor who's seen local government
interesting.
from the inside. So I think they sound like
That
two
sounds like a
really
great
good
event.
speakers. Yeah. And the blurb, Kate goes on to say in the blurb, at this session you will discover what councils actually need to ask before deploying AI tools, how to design services that don't exclude your most vulnerable residents, what digital inclusion really means when AI is in the mix, and what the evidence says about AI work and widening inequality. Now that sounds a
Sounds
really
great.
useful session, and I hope it's open to um
I'm
non
gonna I'm
public
gonna
sector
register for
people.
that. I think.
Yeah, I think I might
Yeah.
do too. Yeah. Kate Parsley often uh, writes very interesting things on LinkedIn. We're connected. In fact, we're having a
There's the
meeting soon.
poster for it there.
Yeah, yeah. So what's supposed to say anything that I have missed in the
Don't
blurb?
think so. No,
No,
but it's a
no.
nice poster.
Yeah, free.
No,
Yes,
I'm gonna look into that one
nicely
later
done.
myself.
Okay.
Good.
So that brings us to the end of the events that we picked up for this week's episode. So we will go on to our stories. Um, so the first one is from a few weeks ago by Sue Lacey Bryant, and the title is "Who Will Be Your Digital Carer?" Turns out it's a big question, and she writes in this piece: as the NHS moves from bricks to clicks, who will be your digital carer? Should you lose capacity to access, navigate, and interact with digital systems yourself?
Wow.
And it turns out this is a very big question with individual, societal, and technical dimensions. The UK's shift to digital first is creating a growing, largely invisible dependency on digital carers. They use that as a title. People who help others to access essential online services and support digital interaction. Digital caring already underpins access, equity, inclusion, dignity, privacy, and autonomy, and indeed productivity and the continuing effectiveness of digital first solutions being implemented now and into the future. Yet our reliance on digital care is neither recognised in
Wow, great.
policy, planned for, funded, nor subject to consistent governance.
Hmm.
So she dives into the issues and she says, working alongside Sophie Lancaster from Arts Council England, a fellow member of the National Health and Digital Literacy Partnership, which Sue Lacey Bryant chairs from CILIP, she took a dive into the related issues. And with thanks to Maria Diaz, Faculty AI, generously assigned Matthew Cotton to help us dig into the data. And we look forward to sharing the modelling work undertaken with colleagues at NHS England. For starters, though, it's startling that 25.3 million adults in the UK, that's 52.9%, helped someone online in 2024. I
Wow.
love that figure because I usually ask when I do presentations how many people in the room have helped somebody online in the last, week or month or whatever. And most people put their hands up. And I say, you're all digital champions.
Yes.
So Emma Weston will be proud of me from Digital Unite. So I go back to the article. That notches up, even at the most conservative estimate, the time spent by digital carers. Now, she's calling them carers, not champions. Interestingly, is
Well, I
equivalent
think
to
the point
that.
here is that these people are helping people. Yeah, it's more than champion showing people because there's an ongoing role here.
Yeah, possibly. Yeah, and it's about health, isn't it? Yeah,
Yeah.
equivalent to that of at least 134,196 full-time equivalent posts, and the demand for digital care is set to rise due to demographic factors. And the article goes on to say digital transformation risks excluding millions of people while placing a growing yet uncounted burden on family, friends, and neighbours, as well as on frontline staff who take on the role of ad hoc digital carers, e.g., in
Mhm.
social care, general practice, and
Mhm.
libraries. Why mention libraries, you ask? Which other public services remain on the high street? We might reply. Very good point, as we often say. Public libraries are safe spaces. They offer a digital hub for those without kit, connectivity, and skills, while public library staff provide a safety net for people unable to call on family or trusted friends for support. It goes on to say, but the UK is losing libraries at a rate of about 40 each year. Okay, I don't know, I don't think I kind of went to the end of the article in my blurb for today's program, but
Mm.
it is worth reading, and the link
Mm.
obviously will be in the show
Yes.
notes. Um, so it references the APPG panel discussion about digital inclusion, and I think that's another one worth diving into. That would be of interest to people that we regularly have contact
It was
with.
brought home to me that digital by default is not acceptable, and that digital exclusion and digital inclusion are not the same things. Very true.
Mm, yeah. I mean, for us, it's a bit sad in a way that people are just discovering this now when we've,
Hmm.
been talking about it for the last 6 seasons. But
I like the phrase digital care though, because
yeah,
it's a bit more down to earth than the phrase digital champions, although it has
mm,
its place as well, and it does get this concept ahead that some people will require ongoing support
mm, mm,
to access digital stuff with the best will in the world.
yeah,
Older people, people with disability, some types of disability, with the best will in the world, or some types of serious illness. It might just be a temporary thing, but the concept of caring for people, including making sure that they have access to the digital resources that they need, is a really powerful one. I think it's not really
yeah,
one I'd properly thought of before.
mm, mm, yeah. So I'll be following up on this one and see if
Mm.
Sue Bryant would like to come on the show because it isn't a term that we've used before, so it'd be good to
No.
hear more about it. Okay. Moving on, then we have again a link from LinkedIn. And the title of the article is "Soul Searching," as in
Oh,
soul,
oh,
as in Korea,
oh,
for
oh.
digital inclusion by Aaron S., who is or was the SCVO Digital Inclusion Manager. And he writes about a couple of things, but he says in this piece, here are a few things that stuck with me. Inclusion, but with teeth. In the Republic of Korea, digital inclusion isn't an aspiration buried in a strategy document, it's law. Now, that's impressive. The recently conceived, he says, Digital Inclusion Act introduces mandatory national action plans every 3 years, legal duties on the private sector in relation to design and accessibility, as well as supporting digital inclusion, guaranteed non-digital channels. Well, hey, excellent. More that we like to hear about that. And digital inclusion impact assessments across different policy areas. He goes on to say, imagine being bold enough to legislate for what you believe in rather than dance around it in strategies and action plans. There's also a national network of local support, and there are networks like that in the UK as well. Um, Aaron says there are over 1,000 digital competency centres across the country. Interesting title. Located in libraries, community centres, and welfare offices. Brackets place-based digital inclusion. Anyone? A reference to UK practice, policy and practice, and these centres offer classes, one-to-one support, and help with everyday digital tasks. He does remind us this model isn't new. The scale and consistency are. And then another term, we're discovering more new terms today, Sweyn. Digital guides, a new
Okay,
reference.
yes.
Digital guides are easy to spot, usually wearing bright, high visible clothing and positioned in places where digital systems are heavily used, or where older people are more likely to be, e.g., libraries, transport hubs, parks, and public buildings. So they're out in the community. Wow. They provide immediate practical support with things like kiosks, apps, or someone's own device, stepping in at the exact moment confidence or systems fail. Often funded by local government, they're a simple but effective reminder that support works best when it's placed where people are most likely to struggle, not just where services happen to be delivered. Excellent! How great is that? Imagine. Kiosks. So kiosks. Kiosks are everywhere in Seoul. As a visitor, they're brilliant, especially when you don't speak the language, but they're not designed for inclusion. They're designed for efficiency. They speed things up, reduce staffing requirements, and standardize services, but they're also shift complexity onto the user and create new barriers for people with low confidence. The Digital Inclusion Act covers accessibility standards for these kiosks, and the digital guides can support However, kiosks don't solve digital exclusion. It displaces it from your living room to a train station. So he says, what's the difference? What struck me most, he says, is a subtle shift in approach. In Scotland, digital inclusion is rooted in inequality, social justice, and person centered support. It's for the person. In the Republic of Korea, it's more about completing digital tasks and accessing services at scale in a recognized digital world. It's for the system. So, there.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yes, I mean, Aaron Slater is one of the people who's been involved for years in the SCVO's digital inclusion program in Scotland,
Right.
and there is a bit of a division of opinion, I think, between
Okay.
SCVO, it's fair to say, and the current Scottish Government approach. And I think this is quite a good example of why some people take the approach. I think the comment about it not being all about plans and governance and all that stuff. There was a quote somewhere in there about that. I think that is a barbed comment on the still unpublished Scottish National Digital, whatever it's going to be. It's a bit unfair to say still when there's been an election for the last 5 weeks, but there were many, many, many weeks before the election when little or nothing seemed to happen. I mean, sure, there's lots of hard work going on in the background, but and I know that Aaron has been very, very critical of that whole approach,
Right.
to the point that the SCVO, I think, withdrew from being involved in it, even.
Right.
Which you
Okay.
know you can argue with as well, I guess, as an approach, but yeah.
Okay. Well, if Aaron would like to come on the show and talk about any of these, I'm sure we'd be interested to have another
Absolutely, it would
perspective.
be great.
Yeah.
It'd be great.
Yeah.
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 Or somebody from the Scottish Government as well. That would be great too.
Yeah. Okay. The next item is from our friend in Essex, Jess Flack, and this is a kind of a personal item on referring to a personal matter, sort of on LinkedIn, but making a wider point. And this is about digital exclusion and travel. And she says in this LinkedIn post, a very panicked 14-year-old daughter this evening She downloaded the new Arriva Group app, other apps are available obviously, and was unable to access her bus ticket to travel home, leaving her stranded and upset. It's not an update, it's an entirely new app that requires you to create a new account for, despite already having one. Okay. It's clear that their helpline has been inundated with calls because you're greeted with, please be advised that we are receiving a huge amount of calls because the new Arriva app is live. Or Riva, I think it's called. For me, Jess says, having to firefight a problem this big after go live is a red flag for both accessible and digitally inclusive service design. Though there is information on the new app and in the support section on their website, it's confusing as to why you would need to create a new account to access your old app information and the tickets you purchased. The data clearly talks to each other. She goes on to say, my daughter is safe, thank goodness. I was able to pick her up. I do worry for the particularly vulnerable users, sorry, that this might have not been the case for. Not an uncommon situation, I'm sure, that we've all heard from friends and family before.
No, it's kind of the opposite of what we were just talking about in Korea, isn't it? It's the kind of complete indifference to what happens to individuals caught up in the new digital thing at the point you introduce it,
Yeah.
with no thought through or adequate support, or even if it had gone well, there would have been some people who would have been confused.
Yeah. And like she's a
Very,
14-year-old,
very
so you'd
poor.
imagine she has,
So we,
you know,
yeah,
some kind of
yeah.
what do you call it? Not digital skills, some fairly advanced digital skills.
And
But being
if Aaron Slater's description of what the situation in Korea is, this would be completely unacceptable and illegal there
yeah,
to do that.
yeah.
Which
I also
makes you
understand.
makes you think, given that it's so common an experience, really.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, we've all had this situation, I'm sure, in one way or
Mm.
another at some time.
My understanding also is that bus companies like that have a policy of not refusing a vulnerable person
Well, they do.
a
They will
ride,
tend
but
to.
but of course a 14-year-old might not feel able to
They need the
insist on
confidence
that,
to
Yeah,
try that, and
yeah,
the way it's done will be very different depending on the bus driver, I expect,
yeah,
or the
yeah,
policy of the company.
yeah,
Yeah, it's not a good situation.
yeah. And being Jess Flack's daughter, she'd have had some extra knowledge, and that
Yes,
still didn't
yes,
so yeah.
indeed.
I'm sure, as we say, other bus companies, I'm sure, and other transport companies have similar issues. So we're just trying to make the point of
I mean,
needing to
there
be
is
aware of
the,
kind of issues.
the thing that I think the UK does have theoretically is a legally required set of standards on accessibility and that sort of aspect of the thing. So I'm quite certain that if you looked at that through an accessibility view, that would have grossly disproportionate effects on people with disabilities who are protected under the Act, under the Disability Discrimination Act. So there are some requirements in UK law and the law in the different parts of the UK, I should say. It's just that they're woefully under enforced and ignored.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So we will go on to the next item. And this one and the next one are both reference to the King's speech, with the UK King's speech, which some of us will have
We
heard.
should have had a fanfare ready.
Say again.
We should have had a fanfare ready.
Not that kind of program, I think. Anyway, we're apolitical. Well, sort of. We're sort of.
Not
Well,
really.
we're sort of lefty, aren't we? Anyway, the UK King made this speech, King Charles, and he did reference digital, so we wanted to make reference to that ourselves. And this is an article written by Emma Stone from Good Things Foundation, entitled "A Digital Dose of Hope in the King's Speech," and she says digital ID sounds techy, but here's the thing: if done right, it could be a win-win. It could make public services easier and faster for people to use, and it could save the public purse. Doing digital ID right means ensuring that digital inclusion is baked in, not bolted on. That's the Good Things Foundation strapline at the moment. She says, for me, this is a hopeful moment. Why? Because for once, the government's talking about digital transformation without treating inclusion as an afterthought. The digital ID consultation was clear. Alongside rolling out a voluntary digital ID, There will be a large-scale inclusion program for people facing digital and/or identity barriers and alternatives maintained. If the government delivers on inclusion, then we're talking values-led digital transformation. She writes about other things as well, but then she goes on to say doing digital ID properly means more than just creating an app. It means providing human and local support where and when people need it, building in safe proxy use, resolving issues quickly, ensuring top notch security, and tackling affordability barriers. On this last point, a digital ID may be fee free compared to a driving license or passport, but sufficient connectivity and suitably up to date devices will be essential for anyone using it. So, doing digital ID right means designing for everyone and bringing everyone on the journey. And she does write more, but that's it. That's the kind of the context, and that um, kind of might have been written knowing about the previous
I was
item
going to say
about Seoul. You know,
they've been learning from the Koreans,
yes,
the UK
absolutely,
government. I
yeah,
should say this will be England and Wales. This
yes, of
stuff
course,
because
yeah,
Scotland does this stuff separately.
yeah,
But it's all good stuff all the same.
yeah. So that's one kind of view of the King's Speech and digital identity, and then we had another. I picked up another article by Dan Johnson about the King's Speech and
Well,
digital
there's the king,
identity.
in fact.
Say again.
There's the king, in fact,
Oh,
kind
right,
of
you've got a picture of
appearing
him.
on
Okay,
screen.
yeah,
Oh no,
indeed.
I haven't shared it yet. That would
Okay,
help. There's the king.
there we go. Hello, King.
Oh, hello, king.
So Dan is has a different perspective on this to some extent, and he says he does the good and the bad. And the good, he says, is the government appears to be embracing modern reusable credential patterns rather than simply digitizing physical documents. The references to credentials being issued, maintained, stored, and verified, alongside sharing only the specific information required, strongly align with modern mobile driving license and ISO 180135 style approaches built around selective disclosure and user control.
Hmm.
And number two of the good points are the briefing notes explicitly acknowledge that a mature UK digital identity ecosystem already exists, rooted in the Data Use and Access Act 2025 and the UK Digital Verification Services DVS framework. For several years, certified providers have already been delivering regulated identity,
Hmm.
age assurance, right to work, right to rent, and DBS related
Hmm.
services across the UK economy. The notes also explicitly reference the role of private DVS providers in supporting consumer choice and interoperability across the wider economy.
Okay.
There's a couple of other things. An emphasis on inclusion. The statistics around 15% of households earning under 5,000 per year have no photo ID highlights a real societal issue. And I have to say, I noticed this in the elections, recent elections in Birmingham and other places around England,
Yeah.
where people were being asked to present actual physical photo ID, not just a photograph on their phone, which most people had some access to, and people were actually being turned away at polling booths and told to go home, collect your ID, and
Yep.
come back again, which wasn't ideal, obviously. But
A
they were,
legacy from the last government.
so yeah, unfortunately. Um, Dan says a free to access digital identity could genuinely help reduce barriers to accessing services, employment, and the wider economy, provided inclusion remains central to implementation. Number four and five. Number four is optionality. The repeated reference to digital ID being optional, with existing routes remaining available, are important safeguards. Yeah, as long as get jobs words who say no, you need your digital ID. A successful UK identity ecosystem must support both digital and non-digital access, particularly for vulnerable or digitally excluded citizens.
That all depends how it's implemented. I mean, if you
Yeah,
say if you say all services that you have a right to must have another optional way of accessing them other than the digital ID system, that's one thing.
yeah,
But that doesn't apply to bank accounts. It doesn't apply to. It doesn't. There's lots of things that are discretionary and that
mm,
companies or the government don't have to provide.
yeah,
Are they also going to legally require a non-digital access? We would hope so, but
yeah.
let's see.
And number five, then, in that list of good things is efficiency and fraud reduction, streamlining interactions with government, reducing repetitive onboarding processes, and improving attribute sharing all have real potential benefits. Um, However, he says the references to Estonia continue to demonstrate how poorly understood the differences are between the Estonian and UK models. And I'm familiar with this myself to some extent. Estonia's digital identity ecosystem, a fantastic success story for digital identity, was built alongside a national identity card regime, a highly centralized state architecture, and a significantly smaller population, of
About the
course.
size of Greater, was it Greater Manchester or
Something like
Birmingham?
that. Yeah,
Something like that.
small. Yeah,
Estonia's
yeah.
population.
The UK already has a large and active private sector identity market operating under a federated trust framework. The comparison is not straightforward, so let's put Estonia to one side. So he goes
Well,
on to.
yes and no. I mean, that last point, the first points are very good. I mean,
Yeah.
it's crazy. The whole structure of society. I mean, Estonia is a former Soviet socialist republic,
Yes. Yes.
so you know, it's a different context.
Yeah.
However, even if there is a large and active private sector identity market operating under a federated trust net framework, blah blah blah, the government at this stage should be asking: is that how we want to do it?
Yeah. Yeah.
It might be. But for someone who's obviously involved in that industry, by the way he writes or she writes, to come along and say that obviously that is what we should be using is wrong.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree. So the not so good side of the story then Dan goes on to say are things like the government UK app is being positioned as the front door to public services with digital ID at its foundation. That risks framing digital ID as centrally owned government infrastructure rather than an interoperable ecosystem.
Which again I say might be what we want.
Yeah.
Just because we happen to have a few companies providing pretty decent identity verification services to people who can afford them or organisations who choose to use them doesn't mean to say that that is the model that is automatically and obviously right for the whole population to access all services. It could be that starting again is the thing to do.
Yeah. He says that the focus should instead be on enabling trusted government data and authoritative attributes to be consumed. Is that right, the right word? Into authorized,
I
subsumed,
think it
maybe
means
whatever.
subsumed, yeah.
Yeah, into authorized wallets and services, including those already operated by certified DVS providers. Much of this capability already exists today, but with caveats, as you're saying, Sweyn. The UK should avoid recreating infrastructure that parts of the private sector have already spent years building, certifying, deploying.
If that infrastructure is fit for the task ahead.
Yes, yeah, we're going to have to rewrite this
Yeah,
one, I think.
absolutely. It's not very often I disagree. So
No, indeed.
Dan Johnson.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Similarly, he says the proposal places government firmly at the centre of issuance and trust
Which could be what we
orchestration.
want.
Could be, yeah. While public sector credentials clearly have an important role, this approach risks undervaluing the significant investment, delivery capability, and operational maturity already developed across the certified DVS
I'll tell you
ecosystem.
how this.
Okay,
Yeah.
he's got an agenda or a he's got a
This
platform.
type of argument reminds me of the arguments for privatization of utilities. It
Yeah.
really does.
Yeah.
I mean, okay, we're starting from a position that there is this big, but the number of people who actually understand how this very complicated ecosystem actually works is not that high, I would guess. And maybe we don't want to be starting with a system that is so complicated we can hardly explain it to each other, never mind to everybody else who might need to use it.
Yeah. He also says not so good is digital right to work, cited as one of the first use cases of the digital ID, is not hypothetical future infrastructure.
Yeah.
It already exists and is actively delivered today through certified identity service providers.
He's absolutely right there.
Yeah. According to Home Office research published in 2025, 23% of employers already use IDSPs for right to work checks, while industry bodies, including the Better Hiring Institute and Association of RecTech Providers, collectively represent more than 15,000 employers actively modernising digital hiring processes.
And that whole point there is just illustrates how idiotic it was to be announced, a digital ID to be announced as a thing to kind of combat illegal immigration, which is basically how it was announced originally. It was just an idiotic, stupid thing to do by the current government.
Yes. So Dan Johnson is saying the government should build on this adoption curve rather than risk disrupting it. So he says the proposed legislation leaves him with some questions. Will independently certified credentials achieve equal standing? Will gov.uk issued credentials become preferential? Will private sector issuers be able to originate reusable credentials accepted, of course, both public and private sector services. He welcomes the announcement. Overall, he says there's a lot to welcome. The tone is notably more supportive of the existing market than many expected, including recognition of the 2.1 billion in annual revenue generated by the private DVS sector in 23-24. He finishes by saying, but the long-term success of UK digital identity will depend on whether government chooses to enable an ecosystem or dominate one.
Well, no, the success and continued viability of a private sector self-invented ecosystem that nobody understands, which may be fit for the job if lots of change happens to it and they accept that the government's in charge, comma, you can finish that sentence depending on how depending on if you can remember how I started it. No, I do see what he means, and he does make some good points. But I think I think it's a fundamental misunderstanding of what's going on here. If the private sector industry that is already active in this area thinks it can dictate to government how the citizens' ID infrastructure is going to work for everyone, and they are where they are because there's been a market for specific types of ID management. Okay, they may or may not be important. Those specific things, or the way those specific things work, may or may not be important in the new thing that the government wants to do. They should be trying to find out and redesign their system, offer their expertise by all means. But I don't think it's fair to assume that the government that it's not appropriate for the government to be in charge of something like this. I don't see what's inappropriate about that if it's going to be a big new optional but highly significant new thing for everyone, which none of these existing systems are.
Do we have time for another story, or are
Yes.
we gonna? Yeah, okay, we'll do one more then.
I haven't even unshared the screen. We've just gone
That's
straight
okay.
to the next one.
Yeah, and this is one entitled "Digital Inclusion and the Mirror We Refuse to Look Into" by Azero Jean Harriet Modiagi Erhua, and this is a story about Nigeria. Again, I picked up on LinkedIn, and Azero Jean says, we often talk about digital inclusion in Africa as though we are permanently behind, in apostrophes, behind Silicon Valley, behind Europe, and behind Asia. But she says, what if the problem is not our capability, but our perception? Body image teaches an interesting lesson about human psychology. People become disconnected from themselves when they constantly measure their worth against borrowed standards. Eventually, they stop seeing what is already valuable in the mirror. She says, I think Nigeria's digital ecosystem suffers from something similar. Too many of our policies, funding models, and innovation conversations are designed around imitation instead of context. We reward resemblance to foreign systems more than relevance to local realities. And yet, she says, some of Nigeria's strongest digital inclusion stories succeeded precisely because they ignored imported assumptions. OPay and MoneyPoint scaled because they understood informal economies, neighborhood trust systems, and agent-led commerce. They adapted technology to people, not people to technology. This sounds great. I love the
Directly
theory of
relevant
this.
to that
Yes,
last story. This is
absolutely.
exactly what I meant.
Yeah.
Actually.
Mama Money, she says, expanded financial access by designing around low-income women in underserved communities instead of waiting for those communities to become bankable. Tech Herfrika embedded digital literacy into livelihood and survival for rural women and farmers. I think we've covered something like this
We have
before.
we have mentioned some of these things before. Yes.
Yes. How kind of making it
Yeah.
immediately usable.
Particularly the rural women and
Yeah.
farmers
Yeah.
aspect. Yes.
She says these are not imperfect versions of a global innovation. They're complete responses to local realities. The challenge, however, she says, is legitimacy. A study titled Challenges of Social Entrepreneurship Development in Nigeria identified weak policy support, inadequate funding pathways, and fragile institutional frameworks as major barriers facing social enterprises in Nigeria. In other words, the impact exists, but the system still struggles to recognize it. Government's role here should not be simply be regulation, it should be reframing.
Exactly.
Policies like the National Digital Economy Policy and Strategy 2020-2030 and programs such as the 3 million technical talent program, I think we covered that one, show signs of that shift from comparison to cultivation. But she's not resting on those laurels. She said more must happen. We need policies that reward relevance, not resemblance. Procurement systems that include social enterprises
Yep.
structurally. We need that in the UK as well,
Mm-hmm.
badly. Community-based digital inclusion models,
Mm-hmm.
local language training and affordable access, and regulation that understands grassroots innovation instead of suffocating it. That local language training goes back to the session about ESOL and digital skills. So
Yes. Yes. Very
this is
much.
all very much
Mm-hmm.
coming together. She goes on to say digital transformation does not begin with platforms, it begins with perception. The day we stop asking, why don't we look like them, and start asking, what already works here and how do we scale it with dignity, is the day inclusion truly accelerates. That reminds me of Cormac Russell's ABC stuff about, what works, not what what's broken, what work, what's fixed, what
Yeah.
works. So yeah,
Yeah.
she says, concludes by saying the mirror has already been here. Perhaps it's finally time we trust what we see.
Yeah.
So,
And that is, I mean, that is a different argument to what I was saying about the previous story,
mm,
but it's another relevant factor.
mm,
The common theme in my argument against the previous story and this article here is start with people and where they are.
yeah,
And that also is how Korea have managed successfully to do whatever they've done. They've started where the people are. You don't say just because we happen to have this bunch of technology lying about that some businesses sometimes have found useful for some things that
mm,
we necessarily have to assume that we're going to use those things and that they're well designed for
mm,
everyone to use everywhere for everything.
yeah, yeah,
Doesn't necessarily make sense.
yeah.
And
So,
it's such a typical European kind of, I'm going to use the word anyway, neoliberal way of looking at things, where anything devised by the private sector is by definition better than anything designed by a public authority. That I think it's just yes, you need to look at what people are doing in communities and take that on. That does not mean leaving it all to incomprehensible protocols invented by businesses for their own purposes.
yeah, right. And on that note, we will finish today's episode of the Dr. Tech Show. If there's anything you heard on the show that you'd like to come on and talk about, we'd love to hear from you. Or anything else you'd like to talk about in the field of digital inclusion or online communications or digital storytelling, please do contact us. In the meantime, we hope you have a great week and we'll see you next time.
Have a good
Thanks very
week, and in
much.
the words of John Popham, let's see if I can play the theme music.